Vampires, werewolves, and teleportation, all the ingredients to complicate the day of a poor Japanese student. Get your holy water, silver bullets, and DVD sets ready. It's time to meet the world's coolest vampire. Welcome to the terrifying and fun world of Bloodlad. In another dimension, the vampire and head of the East District of Demon World, Stas Charlie Blood, lives as a normal anime enthusiast. Stas explains how in the past, vampires crossed the world of demons and visited Earth. But for him, being a vampire on Earth was more of a disadvantage than anything else. So he decided to live in his own dimension, in his own apartment filled with... yeah, you can already see what I'm talking about. And a way of any kind of responsibility. However, one day, like any other, Stas' second in command, Deku, informs him of the capture of a living human girl. Her name was Fuyumi Yanagi, who, without an explanation, has appeared in the demon world. Excited by the news, Stas orders that no one harms the human and tells Deku to take her to his apartment to deal with her in person. When he cuts off the call, Stas panics from the excitement of meeting a human, so he prepares to meet his new guest. Deku takes Fuyumi to Stas' apartment and leaves her with his boss. Upon meeting Fuyumi, an excited Stas becomes infuriated and engages with her in an anime discussion about serious and video games. Meanwhile, Deku and the other members of the gang wait in the street, curious about how the meeting with Fuyumi will end, as they are sure that the vampire will eat the young human. However, Deku and his men are distracted when suddenly a demonic plant seller who shows up on the streets trying to sell his carnivorous plants. Deku tells him that for any kind of activity, he must request permission from the leader of the territory, who is our protagonist, so he must withdraw. The plant seller reveals that he is aware of this and is actually only on site to challenge the territory's leader. Then the plant seller attacks his men and demands the presence of their leader, while one of his plants breaks formation and heads elsewhere. Deku asks for help from Stas, who is not too keen on going to fight, but decides to do it just to impress the human girl. Stas easily kills the challenger using his ability known as Zip, which consists of using his telekinetic powers to explode his enemy's heart. But when he and Deku return to the apartment, they discover to their horror that Fuyumi has been killed by one of the rebel demon plants. After finding her bones and strangely Fuyumi herself in Stas' bed, Deku deduces that she became a ghost. After his revelation, Stas completely loses interest in Fuyumi, who, having lost to humanity, has become just another demon, also losing what made her interesting. However, wanting to get his human back, Stas decides to resurrect her. Later, Fuyumi recalls who he stumbled upon the demon world and takes Stas to an alley where they discover a rare dimensional portal known as the Black Curtain. Stas stops Fuyumi from entering the portal, explaining his strange nature, before expressing his desire to visit the human world himself. Stas then takes Fuyumi to a local cafe where he has the owners, Stacy and Meijiro, determine the nature of his existence through his third eye magic. As Stas reveals his intention to go to the human world to a terrified Mamajiro, Deku enters with a new recruit to the gang, Mimic Yoshida. Mamajiro outlines the repercussions of Stas' departure, but makes up for it by making Mimic the new boss, who later transforms into Stas' own image and then decides to use him as a body double in Stas' absence. Later, at a party welcoming Mimic, Fuyumi wonders if Stas can really resurrect her, but Deku assures her that Stas meets his goals. Now, our hero crossed the Black Curtain and appear inside Fuyumi's room, and Stas immediately begins to criticize her simple lifestyle when he finds out that the young woman's room is very different from his own. Afterwards, Stas suggests that he enroll as a transferred student at Fuyumi's high school, as he has seen in countless manga, and I think it will be the easiest and most fun way to spend the day. As they leave, the pair encounters Fuyumi's annoyed father, who has not only discovered that she was missing yesterday and now comes down from her room with an unknown young man, but Stas sprays him with a mysterious liquid that alters the young woman's father's attitude, basically hypnotizing him. Stas reveals to Fuyumi that the liquid is actually his diluted saliva that has the ability to alter the behavior of humans, and explains that it also possesses the property of controlling them. Later, Stas goes into a fit of excitement as he marvels at the human world, and upon arriving at Fuyumi's school, he sprays its entire population with his saliva, allowing him to fit in as he had never left. The two go outside, and although the sun bothers the vampire, it does not affect him in any relevant way. Stas tells Fuyumi that while he is in the real world, he must keep a low profile, as he is now a demon, and currently, despite being more powerful than humans, they are no match for humanity's technology advances, so some of today's weapons can defeat even the most powerful demons. At school, Stas continues to hypnotize people, and Fuyumi soon realizes that the chemical only creates false memories, at which point her body begins to disappear to her surprise. Stas makes her suck some of his blood, which restores her demonic existence and solidifies her body again, also explaining that from now on they must do this every day or the young woman will disappear. Afterwards, Stas finds himself strangely disinterested in sucking the blood of humans other than Fuyumi. They later return to Fuyumi's house and discover a woman who calls herself Belle Hydra, an interdimensional treasure hunter. Belle reveals that she is the owner of the Black Curtains, although she doesn't know how Fuyumi came to be in the spirit world. She also reveals that she is aware of Stas' doppelganger, to which Stas mistakenly deduces that she intends to blackmail him into giving up his territory, before she uses space magic to transport him to a point in the human world using a frame that serves to channel his powers and create dimensional portals, explaining to Fuyumi that she only needs any kind of frame to create them. After Belle threatens to kill Fuyumi if he doesn't get an item from a demon clothing store for her, Stas decides to accept the mission. Afterwards, Belle explains to him that he has been searching for the person who stole the Black Curtain from him, since it's necessary to be very powerful to accomplish such a feat, and when he finds him, he will marry that person. Meanwhile, Stas gets into a pointless fight with the powerful store owner over a demon's underwear, until Belle and Fuyumi show up with the later explanation that Belle had only been testing Stas in his search for someone with powerful magic. Belle finally reveals that the only thing capable of bringing Fuyumi back to life is the Book of Human Resurrection, which he had sold to the head of the West District of the Demon World, which his name is Wolf. A surprise Stas reveals that Wolf is his old friend and rival. Having no more business on Earth, our heroes return to the Demon World to retrieve the Book of Resurrection. Back home, Wolf continues to expand his territory with the Demon World, while Stas recruits Mamijiro along with Fuyumi to help him track him down. Meanwhile, Belle remains suspicious of Stas and continues to watch him, believing that the vampire knows more than he's letting go. Stas and company board a special demon carriage and end up meeting Wolf on their way to another territorial battle. The two rivals meet again, but prove to be close friends, sharing greetings and jokes of their own, and happy to have found each other after a long time. After a bit of casual rivalry, Stas tries to get Wolf to help him get the book, but he tells him that he doesn't know where it is, so they're gonna have to go on exploration to find it, and going through his vast domain in search of a book, not something he's too interested in doing. Seeing no alternative, Stas proposes that they have a competition like in the old days, where Wolf bets on helping Stas find the book if Stas wins, and Stas bets on Fuyumi herself if Wolf wins. Wolf doesn't seem too enthusiastic about Fuyumi, but he accepts anyway. Stas then begins to prepare for a bowling competition, working out a plan for Fuyumi to cheat using his manipulative magic, but Wolf surprises him by announcing that he has a boxing match prepared instead. While preparing for the fight, Mamejiro comments to our hero that it's crazy to fight Wolf as he is more skilled and stronger than him, well, at least physically speaking, but Stas still looks confident. In the ring, Fuyumi performs the duties of round announcer, which attracts the attention of Wolf, who begins to look at her with different eyes. When they both get in the ring, Stas starts the bout with a clinch tactic, but Wolf ends up dominating the rest of the bout, believing that Stas would spend all his magic healing his wounds. However, in a dramatic turn of events, Wolf ends up being the one to exhaust his magic, because Stas had bit him during their embrace and had been absorbing his magic ever since. As Stas begins to gain the upper hand, Wolf goes into a partial werewolf transformation and begins to patronize Stas' motives for helping Fuyumi, claiming that Stas only uses his vampiric powers when it benefits him. This enrages Stas to the point of nearly killing Wolf with the zip spell, though the encounter is stopped by a tearful Fuyumi along with Belle, who transports them all to another building. Here, Belle reveals that she had the book the whole time and was simply playing with the group. In the end, Stas and his companions try to read the Argamatic text without success, and the only person able to decrypt it is the author of the book, which surprises Stas when he returns to the first page. Stas is terrified when he learns that the author of the book is none other than his older brother and resident of the Acropolis of the Demon World, Braz D. Blood. Stas really doesn't want to visit Braz. Wolf, on the other hand, forces him to finish what he started while threatening Belle to use his space magic to bring Stas to Acropolis. Wolf then kicks Stas into a newly opened portal. However, Belle tells him that the portal was not finished, so he will not reach the plotted destination, but an intermediate location basically in the middle, which she knows but is not gonna tell anyone. Thus, our vampiric protagonist ends up in Belle's room. In his room, Belle once again tries to test Stas, but he instead questions his true motive. Belle reveals that he has noticed how Stas' magic acts as if it's being through a seal, leading him to explain his history with Braz. Stas explains that when he was younger, Braz conducted numerous tortures and experiments in order to make him more powerful, killing him over and over and over again, only to revive him and begin the cycle of experimentation. However, sometime later, the young vampire would discover that his brother was not experimenting on him, but he was actually trying to kill him, but could only seal his magic, which Braz accomplishes by firing a bullet directly into his heart, thus creating a seal that only he can remove. Even with the bullet embedded in his heart, Stas' power has been significantly diminished, so his brother is no longer afraid of him and let him go about his life. Upon learning this, Belle finally confirms that Stas is not the magic thief, as he simply wasn't powerful enough to steal his black curtain. But this only makes him more curious about Stas' true power, because as of now, he is already pretty powerful. Imagine him removing that seal. Belle then tries to provoke Stas by locking him in his space grid room until he promises to have Braz remove the seal. Stas agrees and states that when the seal is removed, he will use all his magical power and actually steal the space magic. Later, Belle invites Stas out for sushi and begins to fall in love with him against her better judgment. Meanwhile, in the demon world, Fuyumi's body begins to fade once again, prompting Wolf to rush her to the mad scientist Frankenstein. Finally, Belle takes Stas to Acropolis and decides to cause some trouble to force him to break the magic seal. Stas marches straight to his brother's castle to challenge him, but when Belle retreats, the vampire abandons his brave man Facade and hides in the forest, so he decides to sneak into Braz's castle undetected, but ends up being caught by his younger sister and warden of the demon world, Liz T. Blood, who had disowned him for his teachery and imprisons him in the prison known as Lee's Toys Box. Inside the cell, Stas discovers a suspicious button in his cell, which, when he pressed, activates a challenge option and opens a passage to a mysterious room. After being led to another room, Stas meets again with Liz, who explains to him that an inmate can get out at any time he wishes as long as he can defeat his zombie minions in a battle, a feat that no inmate has yet accomplished. Liz's zombies easily defeat Stas and return him to his cell, even though he continues to push the button and challenge them repeatedly with the same result. Meanwhile, Franken deduces that Fuyumi's condition can be stabilized with a dose of Stas' blood. Furthermore, he explains to Wolf that ghosts have the unique ability to become a single species of demon by absorbing their magic, interfering that if Fuyumi absorbs all of Stas' magic, she may be able to rival another demon. Back to Acropolis, Braz learns of Stas' arrival and the Blood family reunites, with the former refusing to help Stas. After a little sibling rivalry involving Liz's envy of Braz's preference for Stas, Braz proposes a deal to Stas. Meanwhile, Belle reveals to an angry Wolf Franken's hidden intention to use Fuyumi to fight a failed experiment called Artificial Demon Number 9, called a Kim Pardon, a monstrosity he created using body parts from other demons. However, in search for stronger parts, Akim escaped from Franken's lab and begun hunting demons. Wolf makes a deal with Franken that if he defeats Akim, he will return Fuyumi to being a normal ghost. At the same time, Braz explains the same matter to Stas, proposing to teach him the resurrection spell if he helps him defeat Akim, to which the latter refuses. Braz reveals to his younger brother that during his experiments, he discovers Stas' overwhelming power, but also the fact that such power drained his brother's energy, causing weakness and fading. So he decided to seal the power until he could eventually use it. By refusing to have the seal removed, Braz causes Liz Zombie to defeat Stas to the point where he has to use his true power. Meanwhile, with Belle's help, Wolf arrives in the Northern District in his search for Akim and engages in a battle with the territory's chief. However, to Wolf's horror, Akim suddenly appears, grotesquely tearing his boss apart. Finally, as the zombie overwhelms Stas, Braz removes the bullet seal, awakening Stas' true power and allowing him to easily eradicate the zombies. Braz picks up the crushed rock from the ground after telling Liz not to lose it, being a reminder of Stas' true power. With his power now unlocked, Stas leaves Acropolis to confront Akim as per the deal Braz made with him. Meanwhile, Wolf and Akim began their battle with the latter specializing in space magic. To Wolf's surprise, Akim reveals that he is nothing more than a ghost demon who manipulates the data parts of a physical body by magic, so each of his limbs are magically bounded together and function independently. Wolf then realizes the magic stored in his pipe and goes into a full werewolf transformation. Meanwhile, Belle, who has recognized Akim's technique, traps Franken in the grid room, forcing him to reveal all about Akim's space magic. In the streets of the city, Wolf and Akim engage in a fierce hand-to-hand combat, in which Wolf suddenly emerges victorious after using his claws to cut Akim to pieces. At the same time, Stas appears just as Akim begins to recompose his body and enters the battle, knocking Akim down on the northern moor. Wolf, who exhausted his magic completely, admits that Kim surpasses him in his current state, so he decides to put aside his pride and passes the baton to our hero, who will now face the powerful villain. Stas unleashes a barrage of magical blows against Akim, none of which connect because of Kim realizes Stas' reckless fighting style when the vampire wants to use a... You know what he's about to use to defeat him, which makes Fuyumi a little embarrassed. Stas realizes that his fighting style is influenced by years and years of reading manga, so he decides to create his own style. Stas unleashes his magic, which takes the form of a large golden hand and annihilates Kim in a powerful attack. After the attack, Stas allows Akim to pull himself together, admitting that his power is a liability before apparently killing Akim with the zip spell. Afterwards, Wolf approaches Stas and challenges him to a battle. Meanwhile, Belle delivers Akim's pieces to Franken after capturing him while trying to escape Stas' zip, and interrogates them about Akim's space magic, learning that Franken had obtained Akim's core body with space magic stolen from him by an unknown third party. Franken explains that his experiments were always unsuccessful until one day he received from a mysterious benefactor a box containing the corpse of a creature, which served as a basis for the creation of Akim. Braz and Liz then appear in imprisoning Franken and Akim in the toy box before approaching Stas, who refuses to fight his friend Wolf with all his power. Finally, Braz asks to meet the girl Stas wishes to resurrect, and Wolf loses his sense of direction on his way back to the Western District. Belle takes Braz and company to Franken's examination room when Fuyumi and Majiro wait. When Braz first meets Fuyumi, his initial interaction with her angers Stas, leading him to refuse Braz's help and use his temporary method to restore Fuyumi with his own blood. Although embarrassed, the young woman drinks Stas' blood and regains her health. Later, the group heads back to the Third Eye Cafe after Braz makes a request to see Fuyumi's original body. Belle also reveals to Stas her suspicion about Braz and gives her a magic bell that would summon her when Fuyumi requires help in case of an emergency, and the ghost only needs to ring the bell 3 times. Finally, Braz takes a sample of Fuyumi's magic and explains to her that he should be able to resurrect her by converting her magic into a soul and replacing it inside a replicated body. Having obtained everything he needs, Braz sets off for Acropolis, leaving Liz behind, and unbeknownst to Stas, plans to extract the magic from Fuyumi's sample for his own experiments. Afterwards, Stas shows Liz around the East District and buys her a stuffed animal before returning to the cafeteria to eat something made by Fuyumi. During lunch, Stas is not impressed with Fuyumi's food, but Liz finds it delicious, which makes her very happy, and she takes a liking to the young vampire girl. Sometime later, Stas deduces that Braz has forbidden Liz to return to Acropolis until his experiments were finished and allows her to stay at his house. Meanwhile, he introduces her to his anime collection, which the girl takes a liking to. Meanwhile, a strange blood man watches the group. Later, Fuyumi and Liz begin to bond, bathing and even sleeping together, showing that Fuyumi has grown fond to the girl, treating her like a younger sister, and Liz also feels comfortable with her new friend. The next day, Liz wakes up to a note explaining that Fuyumi seems to have left and asked not to be followed, but Stas and company deduce that she has probably been kidnapped and sets out to search for clues. Liz reveals that Braz had placed a tracker on Fuyumi, and Stas begs her to go back to Acropolis and get Braz help. Meanwhile, Mamijiro, Sadie, Yoshida, and Deku get a lead on the blood suspect, who has last seen heading south of the demon world. With his magic now granting him the ability to fly, Stas takes off in search of Fuyumi. Liz arrives to Acropolis with his immediately confronted by the Acropolis police, led by Agent Barrows. Barrows allowed him to re-enter the district on the condition that he takes her to Brass so that he can be arrested for illegally leaving Acropolis. The two women arrive at Brass Castle, and it revealed that the Machiavellism vampire continues to work with Franken, experimenting on Kim's body. Brass attends to Barrows, who arrests him, placing a collar on him that seals his powers. Afterwards, Liz informs Stas that he has failed to locate Fuyumi using Brass equipment, while at the same time, he's approached by a member of the tropical territory of the Southern District, who takes him to the territory chief. Here, Stas learns that the blonde, red-haired man named Neil Hydra lives in the inaccessible dimensional highway. Meanwhile, when Neil stops at a ramen restaurant, Fuyumi, who is trapped in an interdimensional pocket, has the opportunity to signal Belle using the bell he had given her, alerting Belle of her position, and Liz, who relays it to her brother. When Neil flees in response of Fuyumi's signal, he is intercepted by Belle, who learns that he was simply running an errand for his mother, thus revealing that the two teleporters are siblings. Just then, Stas appears and angrily demands that Fuyumi be returned, promoting Belle to help his brother and imprisoning Stas in his grid room, which allows Neil to escape using space magic. Here, Stas tries and fails to reason with Belle, angering her to the point of inciting him to a battle when he prioritizes Fuyumi over her, triggering the young woman's jealousy. Belle then materializes her space magic and seems to gain the upper hand over Stas until he catches her with his own magic, causing her to escape by abandoning her lower body clothing, including her carrying bag. However, when Stas begins to investigate the bag and finds her diary, Belle immediately gives up to prevent him from seeing the diary's embarrassing contents, which are filled with declarations of love for the vampire. Later, as Belle brings Stas to Fuyumi, she laments that she has not yet realized her feelings for him. However, Stas surprises her by realizing that no matter how good her intentions may seem at first, they always lead to unintended consequences that she allows Belle to take out her frustration on him. As Stas and Belle cross the portal to the dimensional highway, she almost reveals her feelings for Stas due to her sincerity. Upon arriving to Acropolis Palace, Brass has a flashback in which he witnessed the death of his father, the former king, at the hands of the current king of Acropolis, called Wolf Daddy, who, with a name like that, must be very dangerous. Meanwhile, Neil and Fuyumi meet Belle and Stas at the Hydra Palace and realize that they know nothing of Nin's intentions. Afterwards, Nian has a rather heartful reunion with Fuyumi, but Fuyumi herself is very confused, while Hydra's butler explains that Brass and Nian are acquaintances. Fuyumi is surprised to see that her captured butler is the spitting image of her father, only in a demonic version. On the other hand, Wolf Daddy praises Brass for his duties in observing the demonic underworld and for helping to capture Akim, but finds it suspicious that Akim shares the same appearance as his missing subordinated Pantomima, or something like that. I have no flipping idea how to say it. Brass nonchalantly admits that he orchestrated the creation of Akim as a declaration of war against the Wolf Daddy Kingdom. What he doesn't reveal to her is that Brass has Franken working on a more powerful body for Akim. Wolf Daddy gives Brass 3 days to present his candidate for king, after which he will kill them both. Afterwards, Brass managed to escape from Barrow's custody using his healing powers. As he gets hurt, the power is activated and he reacts with a necklace. Thus, the vampire escapes, but ends up being chased by Goyle, who mistakes Brass' blood for that of his subordinated, and thinks the worst, becoming enraged and summoning a demon warrior who pursues Brass. Meanwhile, Nian explains to Stas and company the existence of doppelgangers with the human and demonic worlds. Doppelgangers that must never meet, as it would have an adverse effect on both. The woman reveals that she met and merged with her own doppelganger, Fuyumi's mother, during a trip to the human world with a young Belle, which makes them sisters. Elsewhere, Goyle managed to corner Brass with his angry spear magic and demands to know his intentions towards Papa Wolf. I prefer Papa Wolf than Daddy Wolf, to be honest. However, after deducing the nature of Goyo's magic, Brass activates his Bloodstalker magic and is able to remotely control his own blood to threaten Barrel's life, causing Goyo to replace fear for anger, and his demons to lose power. Finally, as Fuyumi tries to come to terms with everything that has happened to her so far, Bells assures her that once she is resurrected, her memory will be erased. After being teleported to a randomly floating island within the highway, Stas tries to determine what he really intends to do with Fuyumi before he is approached by an unknown figure. Meanwhile, after stopping Goyo's attack, Brass treats him to ice cream. The head of the Hydra territory confronts Stas. Meanwhile, Deku, Yoshida, and Mimijiro confront the tropical territory that intends to conquer Stas' territory upon learning that the vampire has abandoned his post. Heads explained that after Neon's training, she along with herself and Fuyumi Yangi's father meet to discuss their circumstances. Yanagi was unwilling to abandon his wife, while Heads had no problem sharing her. When a young bell summons a curtain, the two Croatian girls enter the portal. Although Heads is proud of his daughter's power, Yanagi is terrified by the possibility of his daughter falling into another dimension and decides he does not want to expose her to such dangers. Finally, Yanagi relinquished Neon to Heads in exchange for raising Fuyumi as a normal human on her own. And also, if you got all the way over here and not subscribed yet, I think this is the perfect time to subscribe and leave a like. When Heads asks Stas about his motives for bringing back Fuyumi, he truthfully states that he will not know his true feelings for her until she is resurrected. This causes Heads to interrupt Neon's listening in on their interaction and tricks Stas into making a false promise that he will kill him if he goes against Fuyumi's decision, causing him to eat a disgusting dumpling overdue. Later, Stas wakes up near the entrance of the Hydra territory along with Fuyumi as Head tries to convince Neon of his intention to allow Fuyumi to make her own decision. Meanwhile, as Goyo traps the treacherous Brass in his cool decision spell, freezing him in place, the vampire is rescued by the arrival of Liz and the two escape using their teleportation magic. Unable to agree with Heads' bet on Stas, Neon begins to debate with his motives that they should protect her, but he counters that Yanagi is her real father. Meanwhile, in the Eastern District, Deku, Yoshida, and Mamijiro bravely repel their would-be conquerors, while Wolf, who has decided not to transform back into a werewolf until he's strong enough to defeat Stas, receives a letter from Acropolis by a pigeon or something like that. Elsewhere, Stas laments that his promise to resurrect Fuyumi has done her more harm than good, but he again promised her that he will resurrect her in addition to leaving the Hydra's territory should they both be his wish, which she accepts. As Naeum and the Heads watch Fuyumi and Stas' decision, Heads thinks that Stas will have to become a true hero to face the trials that await him. Meanwhile, a mysterious group of individuals flies to an unknown location aboard an airship, and our heroes cross the gate to an unknown destination. And before the end of our story, Brass arrived to an undercover lab where Franken had been working on a new body for Kim, who turns out to be his father, whom welcomes back to life. And this leaves a ton of loose ends that will hopefully soon be resolved in the form of a new season, movie, or maybe an OVA. But for now, that's it. Thank you for watching. See you in the next time. Peace.